In terms of the application, there's two mandatory actions that applicants must choose, and they'll receive €8 per eligible ewe for this. The mandatory actions, they must pick two of the following. One is shearing, two is body condition scoring and take an appropriate follow-up action. And the third one is vaccination of ewes, and the vaccination can be either Clostridial vaccination or blue tongue vaccination is a new option that's added in this year.
Hello, I'm Kieran Lynch and welcome to OviCast, the Teagasc Sheep podcast. Each episode brings us insights, advice and technical updates for the sheep industry. Now in this week's episode we're joined by Teagasc Sheep specialist Damian Costello as we run through key management priorities for sheep farmers in the month of May. We cover practical advice on grassland management, maintaining land performance and planning ahead for first cut silage. There's also a timely reminder on the National Sheep Welfare Scheme deadline and what's required to maximise payments. On the flock health side, we focus on seasonal risks, including Nematodirus, scald and blowfly strike, with clear guidance on prevention and treatment options. Damian, I suppose maybe we start first, look, with a bit of an upturn in the weather in terms of grassland. What are the key priorities there?
Yeah, as you say, Kieran, the change in the weather is welcome. And again, as always at this time of the year, the importance of having good quality grass in front of your ewes and lambs. So, in terms of grazing groups and that people should be getting their grazing group set up. If you're finding that the group of sheep that are grazing a particular area, the aim should be to get them in and out of there in 3 or 4 days. If that's not happening, I suppose one option is to merge groups, put two groups together, and get the area grazed out a little bit quicker. But oftentimes this is not practical. So possibly looking at a few strands of electric fencing, a couple of simple reels and that. And once sheep are trained into the electric fence, it can be a very effective way of subdividing paddocks to the appropriate size, so that, as I say, you'll be setting them up so that whatever group you have can knock 3 or 4 days out of a particular area, and they're moved on, and that area is closed up again then to allow it to regrow.
Definitely something that have a big impact on performance as well, Damian. Look, simple to implement, but timely. I suppose, Damian, look, the late spring had numerous impacts, but one of them probably was a delay in closing up ground for silage that reduced growth rate. Just on that focus, couple of key things there, like no more than even a further budget, Damian. What are a couple of key messages around that?
Yeah, look, I suppose as we're getting into May, people will find themselves that the overall grass supply in the farm is adequate. So maybe it's time where grass covers are getting slightly ahead. On sheep situations, if the cover has gone over 8 or 9 centimeters, maybe it's an option to take out some high quality silage bales. Again, look at as you mentioned. Certainly, closing was delayed somewhat on some farms, but look, the aim should still to be to try and get your first cut of silage harvested, in the second half of May, ideally. Especially maybe people may have, because of later closing, they might have reduced slightly the amount of chemical nitrogen that was spread. We always used to say the general rule of thumb in terms of nitrogen being used up, that it be used at the rate of about 2 units per day in good growing conditions. But I suppose when you're reaching in or around that time, if you're in doubt, you could always contact your local advisor before you're harvesting, because they'll be able to test the grass for that the nitrate levels are low enough, and that the sugar levels are appropriate as well for harvesting. So maybe no harm to take a grass sample in if you're in any doubt about that.
Good advice. Damian, I suppose we have to be also cognizant, mid-May we've the end of our BIS application, but the Sheep Welfare Scheme deadline is something else that's cropping up. Would you maybe just take us through that?
That's right, yeah. I suppose maybe just to clarify for people, as you said, the two schemes that are there for sheep farmers, the Sheep Improvement Scheme has been running for the last 3 years. We're in year 4 now. There's an automatic rollover for people that are in the scheme for that. The National Sheep Welfare Scheme then was introduced 2 years ago, I suppose. So there's 2 years, we're in the third year, but that's a year-by-year scheme. So each year, anybody that wishes to apply for the National Sheep Welfare Scheme, they need to apply online, so they can do it through their own ag food portal, or their approved FAS advisor that's authorised to act on their behalf can submit the application. So as I said, a new application, this is for the National Sheep Welfare Scheme, a new application must be submitted. And even if they participated in the scheme for the last 2 years, they still have to put in a new application this year before the 15th of May deadline.
That could be an easy oversight, Damien. It's not. It doesn't roll over year to year as such.
It
So it's
doesn't. It
important
doesn't.
that.
It doesn't roll over. No, it doesn't roll over. No, absolutely.
And again, look, if you're getting your FAS approved advisor, that needs a bit of prayer. No, it's a busy time of the year for them too. So
Well,
certainly,
it coincides with it coincides with the deadline for the basic payment, the BIS, or they're all on the 15th of May deadline. So as you said, that they're under a bit of pressure at that time.
Damien, just in terms of the payment and the options and that, maybe just briefly run me through those.
Yeah, I suppose the first thing is when for people, for just maybe so people should know that the application system will calculate the payable number, and it's based on the average of their last three censuses. So um you can't adjust this figure up, but you can adjust it down if, for argument's sake, you're keeping a few euros less this year or that. So the payable number will be calculated for you, but as I say, it can be adjusted downwards. So in terms of the application, there's two mandatory actions that applicants must choose, and they'll receive €8 per eligible euro for this. So the mandatory actions, they must pick two of the following. Number one is shearing, number two is body condition scoring, and taking appropriate follow-up action of the ewes. And the third one is vaccination of ewes, and the vaccination can be either Clostridial vaccination or blue tongue vaccination is a new option that's added in this year. There isn't any extra funding, I suppose, for the blue tongue vaccination, but it's an either or. You can do both if you want, but from a scheme point of view, they must be able to show that they completed the Clostridial vaccination or the blue tongue vaccination of all their ewes. So that's the kind of mandatory actions. So they're in receipt of €8 per ewe for that. So they can top it up then to the full. Well, it will be up to €13 per ewe, I suppose, depending on. I think there's a 22 million budget allocated, so it depends on the number of applications, the number of ewes. Last year, I think, if memory, it worked out about 11.50 or €12 per ewe. So in order to get that top up payment, they must choose one option from category B. And the first option is foot bathing the ewes twice, at least 2 weeks apart in terms of lameness control. And the second option they have is plunge dipping of the ewes to control external parasites.
Damien, just on the foot bathing, there's been some changes there. Would you maybe just elaborate on those for us?
There was, I suppose, the most common solutions that are used in foot baths are either zinc or copper sulfate. There's preliminary data from a Teagasc study is showing that I think 62 or 3% of farmers that footbath sheep use either zinc or copper sulfate as their a 10% solution. That's their preferred footbath solution. There was a bit of confusion as to whether those products were allowed. They are allowed now. There has been a slight adjustment in the terms and conditions, and the other options then are basically biocidal products that are specifically for foot bathing of sheep, and people can check to see if particular products are eligible. There's a link there on the Department of Agriculture website that will tell you whether the particular biocidal product is eligible to be used in the foot bathing of sheep.
It'll be important to check that when you be buying it as well, so that just
exactly, yeah.
Okay, no, that's important to note. Look, that's the deadline coming up, so certainly one needs to be attended to. Look, we touched on some flock health aspects, and it's a time when we see some changes coming in. So one of them has been parasites, and we touched on them at Irish over the past couple of weeks, Stephen, but something we just still have to be careful about.
It is, I suppose, the Department of Agriculture, the Nematodirus forecast is issued annually, and I suppose for lambs that were born in early March, they probably have been treated or will be treated over the next week or so. In mid to late April or early March. Lots of lambs obviously born from mid-March onwards. So I suppose um, the recommendation, I suppose, is that when lambs reach 5 to 6 weeks of age, they need to be eating grass, I suppose, in order to pick up the infection in the first place. So when they reach 5 or 6 weeks of age, generally they're eating sufficient quantities of grass to ingest the infective larvae. But the other thing to watch out for, Karen, I suppose, are any symptoms such as scouring lambs or lambs hanging around drinking troughs or that kind of thing. If as soon as you see that, you probably need to be considering treatment for nematodirus, and that's particularly for younger lambs, I suppose, lambs that haven't reached the 5 6 weeks of age just yet.
And Damien, I suppose when we're looking at the Nematodirus and lambs in a very uniform batch, sometimes treatment can be easier, but we can often overlook maybe them younger lambs or what there's a wider spread there that they could be missed or maybe weren't exposed fully early on.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Kieran. Very often people will look at the main batch of lambs and, rightly so, treat them accordingly. But maybe it's important to bear in mind, as you say, particularly for, if you treat, we'll say, when the bulk of the lambs, as I say, are of age that they're going to be eating grass, you probably still have treated some lambs that are maybe 2 3 4 weeks of age. They may not have been exposed to the nematodirus. So it may warrant a second treatment, particularly if is a fairly big spread in lambing. It may warrant a second treatment in 2 or 3 weeks time. Again, with a white drench, it's not going to be a big cost on the system. It's just maybe the work of doing it, but it certainly it will catch those younger lambs, I suppose, that maybe lambs that were too young to have been exposed to nematodirus when the first treatment arrived.
No, it's important. And so something can easily be overlooked. Probably another health challenge, and we touched on this in another episode recently, that we're starting to see on the ground is some of the foot issues. And I suppose in lambs, scald is something we'd be very aware of. Something deeming important that we nip it in the bud early and prompt treatment is vital.
Absolutely, yeah. And again, look at it's like a lot of things, attention to detail and, avoiding any setback in lamb performance due to scald. And in this case, early intervention is a key as it will spread. So as soon as you see a few lambs that are lame, it's time to intervene. And, in the grand scheme of things, I suppose a kind of a whole flock approach is best. And putting all sheep through a foot bath. Again, as we mentioned earlier on, we're talking about foot bathing products. The likes of a 10% zinc or copper sulfate solution is very effective in both the treatment, I suppose, and prevention of scald. So look, it's certainly something that as I say, as soon as there's any signs of them, if you leave it, all of a sudden you can have a big percentage of your lambs would be affected with scald, and it is a big setback in performance.
Look, temperatures are increasing. One of the other challenges we're going to start to see is blowfly. David, in terms of control of that, I suppose prevention is key. Would you maybe just take me through some of the things we need to focus on there to keep that at bay for the season?
Yeah, sure. Look, as you say, as we get into the month of May, when you get the warm and humid weather conditions, yes, it certainly will drive on growth hopefully as well, but it will also increase the risk of blowfly striking, probably more particularly in fleeces that are soiled or dirty. And on the O side of things, I suppose most people, or lots of people will be shearing probably in late May, early June, so they may get going until then, and possibly when there's a regrowth of wool, they may treat with a boron. So, look, the most common prevention of blowfly that's used probably at the minute is the topical porons, and these are really good products, and depending on which product is used, they can provide cover from anything from 7 weeks up to as high as 19 weeks, and so those products that are providing the longer protection are generally dicyclinyl-based products. They act more or less as insect growth regulators, and these kind of just interrupt the life cycle, if you like, of the blowfly, and they prevent the development of larvae. So it's important if you're using these kind of products. These are you get in before the fly strike occurs. They won't necessarily treat fly strike. So it's important that you get in before any outbreaks of maggots are found. And again, as with a lot of these things, it's important to get the application technique right, from an efficacy point of view. And this includes kind of making sure that your equipment is delivering the right dose rate, so calibrate it and check that it is, and applying to a clean fleece. And the manufacturers of these products provide instructions, and there's videos and so on of instructions on the correct application of these products. So it's important that you're spending, you're investing your money in these products. Make sure you're applying them right.
Just taking a little bit of time and effort at that stage, Damian, from setup to correct application procedure could have a big impact on the efficacy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
To follow that, like, we're looking at lambs and we're looking at periods of cover. We also need to consider the withdrawal periods on them. Something very important maybe for those that lambs slightly earlier or have maybe forward single lambs with that going, to just take that into account.
Yeah, absolutely. In particular, I suppose the products that provide the longer cover, a lot of them carry a 40-day withdrawal period. And again, that's an important consideration. Maybe using some of the shorter withdrawal period products if you have lambs that are approaching drafting. I suppose the other thing that people can do is maybe lots of people, if they're weaning their lambs in sort of mid to late June, as you say, they'll be forward single lambs, and they'll be depending on supplementary feeding and so on. But very often they will be saying that we'll have a draft of lambs for sale the end of June at weaning time. So I mean, if you count back 40 days from that, you're probably somewhere in around the middle of May. So maybe it's prudent to kind of, as I say, get in there with a long cover product in early to mid May. Your 40-day withdrawal then will be up in and around the weaning time towards the end of June, and you can have your first draft of lambs. As I say, the other alternative is that if you have lambs that will be fit for sale within that window, that you can use some of the shorter cover products, and that you have a much shorter withdrawal. I suppose on the cover side, if you're using the long acting products, I suppose, that give you up to 19 weeks cover. When you start from the middle of May, the 19 weeks will take you into late September. So hopefully at that stage there'll be a fair proportion of the lambs drafted, and also we're approaching a lower risk time of the year for blowfly strike.
It's important maybe to also note that they're going to be covered under the NVPS prescription rules as well this year.
That's correct. Yeah, they're treated the same as the stomach worm drenching products or that kind of thing. So it is important to bear that in mind, that you need a prescription. You need a prescription under that program to purchase these products.
Very good, Damian. Look, thanks. I suppose we have the text version of that in the Teagasc Daily. It'll be coming out in the coming week, so you can go back and look through what we've discussed. Good having you on, Damian. Thanks again.
Thanks, Kieran.
We'll leave it there for this week's episode. There will be a text version of everything we discussed up on the Teagasc Daily. I'll get that on the public website and on our social media channels. That's it for me. I'm Kieran Lynch. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us wherever you get your podcasts.